My name is Dan Finucane, and I'm currently a regent. I love folk music, blues music, and I love singing and playing with other people.
My name is Ian Peoples. I'm a Jesuit regent. I'm kind of a football fanatic. Most of my weekends are spent watching at least a few games. I'm probably one of the biggest Lionel Messi fans. Welcome back to MagisTalk. I'm Ian Peoples, and I'm joined by my co-host and brother Jesuit, Dan Finucane. Today, we are joined by someone we have been trying to get on the show for a while.
Yeah, maybe months?
Months.
Years.
Yeah.
Decades.
Yes, we're maybe not decades.
Okay.
We're joined by Luwani Cayetano. Luwani does development work here in Belize and support of the youth in various sectors. And is also a parishioner at St. Martin de Porres Parish here in Belize City, where she is the chair of the Social Transformation Committee and also part of the Just Faith program, which we'll hear a little bit about today. And finally, she's married with two boys, Anichi and Amajawa, who are wonderful. So anyway, all of that, just to introduce you, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
It's great to have you. And Luwani is Dan's oldest Belizean friend. Not that you're old, but that you've been friends for the longest. So you all have known each other for over a decade, right?
It's probably 16, 17 years.
Almost 2 decades. Wow.
It's a long time.
That's a long time.
So
I'm so sorry.
So
I know, me too.
Y'all went to
So
school
if we
together,
lie,
right?
we'll know, but he might not know, but we'll know.
That's true. We went to school together at St. Louis University.
Yeah, and we stayed in touch, and then when he found out he was coming to Belize, you told me, and I was very excited. I was actually pregnant with Amajawa, and I said, well, even if Amajawa is born the day after you arrive, I'll see you.
That's right.
Yeah.
So here we are.
Here we are.
Reconnected.
It is pretty awesome. It's cool to see a friendship that's lasted for so long, right? I mean, how many people have friendships that last 16 years across countries? Yeah.
Yeah, I have at least one, I guess.
Yeah, so. And I think it's great to be able to grow, to see where we've come from and how we've grown in our faith and how our conversations have changed and maybe not changed in some ways, but it's just really beautiful to have that, I think, so.
Just so you all know, if you have any inside jokes, not only will you be leaving me out if you tell them, but you'll leave the rest of our audience out. So just keep that in mind, all right, as we're going through.
And no embarrassing stories.
No embarrassing stories. That's actually on the script. No embarrassing stories.
There are rules. There are rules to this engagement.
Parameters. That's right.
I'm cool with that.
Yeah.
But you talked about, watching each other grow. One of the things we like to ask our guests when they come on the show is just about their faith and the role their faith played growing up. And could you tell us a little bit about your upbringing?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I think, the role my faith played in my upbringing.
Specifically,
yes.
Yeah.
Okay, so I would say that, I grew up Catholic, in a Catholic household. I grew up in a Catholic household, and I'll explain why that matters, I guess, to me. But although we were Catholic and it was practiced every day, at home, my parents and our extended family made it very explicit that we had to know and understand other religions, and that we had to understand that, how, Christianity plays out in other churches. So they tried to expose us to that. And I think they tried to expose us to that not because they were hoping that we would not become Catholic or remain Catholic, but to be able to kind of deepen our understanding of church and tradition, but also our own relationship with Jesus. And later on, that really mattered to me to be able to have that exposure. But then also, both my mother and father are Garifuna. And and we lived, we didn't live in a Garifuna village, we lived in Belmopan, but my aunt and uncle, we lived on the same street. And so for them living, like communally living together was very important. So we had meals together as a family, we prayed together as a family, and decisions were made, the adults made decisions together around the like functioning of the family. And so that was really important because I think I started to learn very early that you are your person and you have to have a relationship with Christ, but you also are responsible for other people around you, and that the decisions that you make impact the other people around you. And so for me as an adult now, that has really kind of shaped the work that I do, but it also shapes how I parent and how I'm a friend. And so I think that has really impacted. I will say one last thing too. So we used to go to church as a family, and then I don't know where the shift happened, but my aunt and I would go, just the two of us, at a different time than everyone else. And why I'm thinking about it now is because you said how your upbringing has impacted your faith. And she was the first person that I started to talk to about God as feminine and seeing like feminine images of God. And so like talking about Sophia and what that means. And like in the Gospel of Luke, when the woman is like turning the house upside down with the coins, like growing up, that really like just stayed in my thoughts. And I never was able to talk to anyone about it except my aunt, because that was something really interesting to her. And so we would walk to church together and talk about that. And it was the only space at that time that existed for the both of us. And now, I mean, theology has evolved, and women have more say in conversations about those things. But at that time for me, that was life changing. And it really impacted when I went to school, and having spaces with other women to talk about faith really mattered. But that was like my initial introduction to this kind of conversation and dialogue that was safe, Yeah.
And did you go to Our Lady Guadalupe? Or?
No, and I'm a little old. So that it wasn't around back then.
Okay.
Yes, but the Catholic Church in Belmopan really played a strong role in the primary schools in Belmopan at that time. And so we had a very strong connection with the parish as a school, but then of course as a family.
Great.
And how did those conversations with your aunt, how did that shape your sense of who God was in your life?
Yeah, I think those conversations gave me permission to understand that it's not, that it's okay to ask questions, and that asking questions about your faith and how it's articulated doesn't make you less of a believer, that you can still show up in your faith if you're asking questions. And so for me, that was just such a gift. And then also I think starting to be able to understand that seeing God in different ways is very helpful depending on the stage that you're in your life. So I think, as a young girl, asking questions, making decisions about where I was going to go to school, and understanding living in Belize a little longer, not living in Belize, I think I needed to be able to feel like God understood me. And so a more masculine God at that time, I've transcended beyond that now, but at that time, I just didn't feel understood. And so having more feminine imagery and feminine conversation really helped me to be able to make some big decisions at that time.
Yeah, one of the lines that has come up a few times in community conversations at our community is that ideology is where you're no longer allowed to ask questions, right? And that's where sort of ideology comes in. And I think that's a great point about being able, entering into your faith and still being able to ask questions, right? And because we trust that when we go to God with these questions, that God is it's a relationship.
It's a relationship.
It's just like your kids, you have kids, right? They're always asking you why this and why that. And a bad answer is just because.
Yeah, correct. That's not an answer.
Sometimes you use it, I imagine.
Yes, definitely.
but maybe human parents get tired of questions when God, I don't think, does.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. My son asked once, how do you think God's feeling about all these questions? Because you're tired, right? And I'm like, no, God is not tired. So you can ask God when mom is tired. Like, go ahead. That's fine. That's okay. Yeah.
I'm reminded, this is, kind of my nerd moment here, but, Karl Rahner, famous theologian, talks about the human person as a question that is only answered by God, ultimately. And I think that way of putting it does free us up. And I think it allows for, as something you're naming, is that, there's so many images in the scriptures of who God is for us. And it's a richness that if we only stick with a few, we miss kind of the whole collection, or the whole sense of the fact that God has revealed who God is in so many different ways. And so, it's interesting to me that your aunt was able to open up that space with you and invited you into that.
Oh yeah, I'm so grateful for, and we talk about it a lot still now, and I think that, so we try to share the readings or reflections together a couple times a week. It's become harder as I've had 2 boys now, but so it's still a really good opportunity to talk to someone who thinks a little bit like you, who understands a little bit of my background, to kind of help talk about what's happening in the readings and how it impacts our life right now.
Well, one of the things that Ian and I were curious about is, you've lived in a lot of different places, a lot of different countries. You've studied in the U.S., you've studied in Great Britain, Scotland, I guess, to be
in Manchester, so in England.
In England, yeah. So, you've had exposure to a lot of different places. You lived in Canada and Panama.
A little bit, yeah.
So,
not for long.
But you've had all these different experiences. So, but you ultimately came back to Belize.
Yes.
And you've chosen to live here with your family. And, we're just curious, why? Why be here in Belize when there are many opportunities you could take in other places?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I think, and you put the question really well in terms of living in all of these places. And it's a gift. I don't take it for granted. But in living in all of those places, I always got the opportunity to learn from people from those countries, but also from people from other countries. And so it really opened up my understanding of just different cultures and how sometimes we're similar, how we're different. And I was able to learn quite a bit. And so there was a moment where I thought, oh my goodness, it's gonna be so important to take this learning home. But I remember once I made that decision, and I decided, I wasn't gonna work abroad, that I also thought there's so much more for me to learn from home too. So it wasn't just me wanting to come back and do better and change things and create new programming. But it was really, I felt that I hadn't learned enough yet, that there was still so much happening in families. I study families, try to understand family dynamics to be able to make programs that really reflect what families need, right? So that's a lot of what lights me up. But I felt that I still didn't know enough about the different things that are happening in our own context. And I wanted to learn from that. And so for me coming home, although I, had all the degree and all of those things, I came home because I wanted to learn more. And then be able to then make, evidence-based sound decisions around what can help families in need. And so I still, reach out to friends that work abroad. I still maintain those connections, but for me, the learning happens here. So I really wanted to come and be a part of that. And I really wanted, I would say, to give back, but that was the smaller part of it, because as I said, I really felt like there was so much more to learn here. There was so much more growing for myself. That was the driving piece of it, to just come home, to learn, and then be able to impart a little bit of what I got from the experiences abroad.
So kind of taking what you've learned in these other places and putting it at the service, but doing the work first of kind of listening to what's actually needed.
Yeah, because I think, when you're doing development work, you can get very caught up with, this is what a community needs, right? And forgetting that a community knows exactly what they need. And so it's more about like accompanying a community and understanding from them what they need, and then maybe tapping into the resources that you have to be able to build and grow together, right? And so I really wanted to be able to do that at home before venturing somewhere else.
Do you have, I don't want to ask a closed question, but do you have a lot of friends, or at least a good number of friends, who have been given the same opportunities as you, Belizean friends, who then have opted to come back and live here?
Yeah, definitely. And I would say it's not a closed question. I think you have a lot of examples of people who return home and then leave again. And you have a lot of examples of people who have met Belizean friends, and then come to Belize and they're not Belizean but become. And I think that's that's a richness that we have, that you have people who've had the opportunity to be able to study abroad and come home, and or choose to go back and forth. But then also I think in Belizean students leaving, it gives the opportunity for people to know, this is an option to come and work and be here and help as well. Yeah.
So being like ambassadors for Belize in a way when you go out.
Yeah.
Switching gears a little bit, something that I have been really moved by, because moving here and us reconnecting, you're a mom now.
Yes.
And have a family, and like that was, when we were in college, that was obviously not the case. So
that would have been interesting though. But anyway.
Yeah, it would have been interesting.
Digress.
Absolutely.
People have done it.
People do it.
No,
Yes.
And that would have been like, we would have, our friendship hopefully would have been a good support.
I think so too. I would have hoped so.
But something that I've been moved by is how, as you were talking about a little bit earlier, how your faith, asking good questions, how that plays a role as a mom, and having these two little guys who are running around, who have a lot of questions, but who aren't always amazing either, and have their moments. So
yes.
Like how does faith play a role for you at home? Easy question.
Yeah, that's hard work. So is parenting. So I would say let's talk a little bit before, if that's easier. Before becoming a mom, it was, I would say, like, my work and my life was, I felt like I was doing God's work, even if it was not necessarily in a Catholic place, or if it was, secular, I guess would be but I felt that if you're doing good work, if you're doing, work for justice, that's good work. And so I always felt that I'm guided by, that lifestyle, that worldview. And so I would describe myself as very Martha, like doing stuff, doing good work, and very important. Becoming a mother, I learned to pray. So I don't think I knew how to pray before becoming a mom. That idea of like, every hour I need thee, I don't think I understood the depth of what that meant until I became a mom. Becoming a mom really changed my relationship with Christ. And when I say I prayed, it's not just because it's like, oh my goodness, what have I done? It's more like an awareness that you are not in control, and that it's very hard, that they ask hard questions, that they're not perfect, that they don't always do what you want. So a lot of that, the control factor of our humanness, right? Really, for me, maybe I can't speak for all moms, but for me, became heightened when I became a mom. And so praying and prayer and trying to find moments of being still was very important, but also asking for strength and grace to be able to listen to them, but also to respond in a way like of love. And so I would say becoming a mother really shifted. And so there's still a huge part of me that's about, solving problems and working with people and doing things. But I think that my prayer life, definitely not where I would like it to be, but I've spent more time sitting down and praying and being quiet, but also having my mind race, and that's been very very rich for me. But also, children ask questions, and so the baby, of course, not yet, but the older one, he, like me, is growing up in a Catholic household, and so going to church and saying prayers at home makes him ask a lot of questions about God and Jesus, and I don't always have the answers. And so, but that's been really good for me, because then I have to do a lot of research. And so we find videos and, we call the people that we know that are close to us with questions. And I think that, when you're raising children in a household, whether they're yours or, just that they're kids at home, it really is a great opportunity to be able to deepen your own, your own faith life, but also theirs, and just to give them the space to ask questions. Has been really healing for me as a person, but I think that's a big part of motherhood. Yeah,
God has blessed you with two. Anichi's obviously very, very smart. I'm sure Majua will be as well. But they're both also very, very active.
Oh,
so I can imagine just...
Yeah, that's why I pray. It's like,
just to keep track of it.
But also that, that I am able to keep up, right? For the strength to do that. And that, you get really worried. You can get caught, as a parent, you can get caught up in the anxiety of having brought two children to this earth, and what that means. And so just praying for that steadiness, to be able to show up each day. Yeah.
And lately, I feel like the word that has come up for both of us, but I think this is applicable to what you've been saying, is surrender.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
The need to kind of surrender that we don't have as much control as we would like, over whatever, whether it's having kids or whatever else.
Yeah.
So, but that idea of that it takes a lot of courage to let go of having that control, and it ultimately is about asking for that help, that grace.
Definitely. Yeah, I think I read something recently that said, you pray to me, but then you're like a patient that goes to the doctor and tells the doctor exactly what the doctor should do, and that's not how it works, and so when you say take care of everything, you have to mean that, and being a mom, it's like, take care of everything, but please don't, please make sure they pass at school, and please make sure, and these please, rather than just kind of slowing down. And so I'm not there yet, and they're young, so I guess I have a long way to go. But it's really forced me to learn how to pray, how to show up that way.
I think the biggest thing that you can be doing for your boys is the example that you are for them. And as you said earlier, you said you're doing work for justice, and whenever you're doing work for justice, you're doing good work. And a few months ago, you and a group of others started the Just Faith program at St. Martin's. And so give us the elevator pitch. What is the Just Faith program, and why is it important for the Belizean Church?
You guys do research. This is very good. It's not stalking, it's research. This is very nice. So Just Faith is, it's a ministry, so they do a bunch of things. But what we've taken from them is a program around Catholic social teaching, and just trying to ground ourselves in understanding what the church says our response can be or should be to poverty, and to just trying to respond in a way that is grounded in our tradition, but also equipping like the participants of the dialogue, of the conversation with tools, right? So we have books that we read together. So you read them on your own, and there's some. It's also grounded in like biblical teaching. So there's some scripture passages. There are books that you read, and then we come together. There's a facilitator that walks us through. How was the reading for you? And many times, like for me, some of the readings are very uncomfortable. For some people, it's like, yes, this is what I've been thinking. This is what I've been wanting to say or see. So, the facilitator walks us through just some questions and to get us to share with each other about what we're seeing, what we understand our response to be now, but based on what we're reading, what it should be. And really trying to force us, I guess, in a nice way, to say that what we're doing isn't enough. And that if we really want to see change, that we need to be able to think a little bit, contemplate, and then respond with action. And that, some of the problems I think what Just Fate tries to do is say, there are no Band-Aid solutions to this, that some of the problems they're deep, they're systemic, but that also you, as individuals, we play a role. So there's some things that we have to do collectively, but also there are things that we need to do as individuals. So a concrete example would be thinking about where you shop, right? And where you shop, are they paying a just wage to the employees that work there? Where are they getting the goods from? Are they impacting, or are they encouraging child labor? And so just really thinking about the choices that you make in your family also have an impact on poverty. And so trying to encourage us to just look around our community and think, okay, where are the places, just continuing with that example, where are the companies or the shops or, that encourage a just wage,
right.
That allow for decent work, that promote really strong and healthy practices and standards for people that work there. And so it really forces you to think about your own self, but then it says, okay, and as a church, how can we respond when we see companies or shops or whatever not treating people well? How do we use our collective voice to make change? And so the program is bringing, a small group together to walk through some of the readings and the questions. And then at the end, saying, okay, what are some concrete things that we can do as a group, right?
That's cool.
Having learned. And I think what's really beautiful about it is that it tries to encourage a group that not everyone thinks the same way. And to be able to encourage very, strong conversation, but in a respectful way. And so it really does teach you because we all have judgment, right? So, but it's the way in which that's done. So, the first few sessions are really about how will you ask a question to someone if they say something that you have a very strong reaction to? And I have very strong reactions to everything, right? So it's like, how do you ask a question and say, you just said that, and I'm really curious as to why, as opposed to, oh, what you just said makes no sense, So it's really, it also equips you with some tools.
It reminds me of Pope Francis's call to create a culture of encounter.
Right. Yes.
And if you look up that word encounter in the dictionary, it actually has a negative connotation to it often. I mean, I think Pope Francis is speaking positively, but it means that you are encountering like in contra, right?
Yeah.
Like, so something that maybe you don't understand or don't necessarily agree with, but creating a culture where we're able to have those conversations that are difficult, but also lead us to being able to understand one another more and to working to solve or resolve or at least come to a mutual understanding of each other. Of one another, right?
Definitely. It's more about like awe and to wonder, like you just said something that is so strongly, or what I feel is so strongly against what I think. But I wonder why you think that, you know? And I think that if we are to do that more in our churches, that then as a Catholic church, we would be able to say and speak out a little bit more, or at all, around some of the issues that we're seeing, and really supporting our communities in a stronger way, in a better way. So yeah, so that's what it is. Group of people coming together, doing some reading first, coming together to talk a little bit about what we read and how it impacts us as individuals, but then what kind of collective action should be taken, right? And different topics, you know.
Can you give us an example of a book that y'all recently read?
Oh, right now we're reading The Joy of the Gospels.
Oh, wonderful.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Padre Andres mentioned that.
Yeah, it's great.
Have
It's
you
beautiful.
read it before?
I had not read it this way, like cover to cover, you know,
Okay.
so just like excerpts, is that the English word? You know, little parts of it, but never like this. And so, for example, we got together this past weekend, and I was very uncomfortable by some of that particular chapter. You know, I was like, oh, I don't know if that I can do this. But then the readings, the time we got together before, I was like, yes, oh my goodness, this is it. This is what we should be doing, you know? So it's good like that. I think it really brings out parts of you that if you've been wrestling with, you know, trying to do better, wanting to see better in your community, not just, you know, doing the same old, it's beautiful to do this and to do it in a group, not on your own, to feel that you're a part of something is really wonderful.
And you'd recommend this to others? You think it's a good,
good
thing to do?
I mean, if I had my way, we would, as St. Martin's, we would be doing this with more groups, you know. But I also think that this is something that as a church, we should really consider doing it. I mean, I'd love to see other parishes taking it on, you know, bringing men and women together that have a hunger and a desire to do more. But I think what this does is first provides a moment of like pause and say, you're really passionate about responding. This is what the church is saying about it. This is what a bunch of research and nerds, I guess if you want to say, I don't like that, but have written it down. This is what they're saying. And allows you to talk that through with other people. And then come up with some kind of solution. So I think if other parishes could do that, it would be very enriching for the parishioners themselves, but then the community in which that parish is serving, you know.
And to that question, this is our penultimate question before our final one. But to that question, what are your hopes for the Belizean Church? That's a big question, but you're kind of speaking about it right now.
Am I?
Well, you're saying one thing that you'd hope for our churches to have in these spaces.
True.
But maybe, if you had to narrow it down, I guess, to what's the first thing that comes to mind when I ask that question? What are your hopes for the Belizean Church?
Oh, one. Well, he said one. I think I have this desire that we would be speaking out against like grave injustice and so, you know, like domestic violence. Violence is a huge problem in Belize right now. You know, households are struggling and for many reasons, but then that manifests itself with violence and so I would want us as a church, and we have things that we can say to say that no, like, we don't tolerate violence in our homes. There are other ways, you know, and I think that would be such a huge gift to Belize if you know, our priests, but also parishioners, because we are the church, right? So if priests could be saying it out loud, daily mass and on Sunday, but then that, you know, the parishioners of churches would be able to say as well, like, no to violence, and how do we do that? You know, how do we do that together? That would be, I think, a really beautiful thing to see.
Well, that'd be refreshing here. It'd be refreshing in most dioceses. Right. I mean, It's just not something that gets talked about all that often.
Yeah. And it's interesting. And I mean, I'd love to hear what you think about that too, is just that the church has a lot to say. So, I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, one thing that I've said, our community recently underwent communal apostolic discernment about our apostolic work in Belize, the Jesuit apostolic work in Belize, and we did it with lay people and sort of having conversations with different people in the community, the communities that we serve. And just one thing that I really felt then was for the church to be more present outside the four walls, right?
Right.
I mean, I love Mass. I go every day. I love our faith. I love teaching the faith, and also recognizing teaching means doing as well. And I would love to see us just more active in the communities, and we are looking at ways on how to do that. But more active, like sort of in the streets, like a church in the streets, and not just behind the walls.
Right.
Like I want when we go to, when Dan and I do prison ministry, for example, it'd be great if we went there and we said, oh yeah, we're with the church at St. Martin's, and they could say,
oh yeah, we know
St. Martin's, and Martin's does great work in the community. They do great work, but I would want to be able to say that about any church.
Yeah.
Oh, you go to Martin's, I live next to St. Ignatius. They do awesome work in the community. And I'm sure these churches are doing great work, but I think all of us need to be more present to the communities in which we find our parishes, because especially the violence, and for me, the experience that I have with the people that I minister to, a lot of it is gang violence, right? And that's like, I would love to see the church respond to that, make statements about it,
Correct.
Right? Really address it more often. I would love to see that. I know we do at Martin's.
Yeah.
I often hear that in homilies. So talking about domestic violence would be, is an element of that as well. But as a church, I would just love to see us address these issues, more often in a more sort of systematic way.
Correct.
Right?
Yes, I think so. I mean, we've talked about this a lot. I think we are doing it, but I think it just large scale to be able to see impact, to make that difference, and that families feel comfortable and safe to be able to say, I think that's our job. Yeah.
Well, to me, the quote that captures this from Joy of the Gospel, Pope Francis talks about taking the risk of face-to-face encounter with the other whose physical presence challenges us, and yet he actually uses the verb yet can infect us with joy.
With joy.
And then the end of that paragraph is, the Son of God, by becoming a human person, summons us to the revolution of tenderness. And what if, that was obvious?
Yeah.
What if he didn't have to write that because we just lived it?
We just lived it. Yeah.
And I think that is ultimately, I think, where Pope Francis is pushing us, inviting us.
Yeah. So that's what we do.
All right.
Great. Well, if you like what you're hearing and you're interested in just faith, you can talk to Luwani. You can talk to Father Andres at St. Martin's and see about doing the program, because it's an established program.
Yes,
you all didn't make it up.
No, we didn't make it up. We didn't make it up. It's established, and it has a structure, and so we'd be able to share like how you can do that in your own parish.
Wonderful. Well, we do have an ultimate question that we've kept secret from you.
Yeah, I know. I'm nervous.
But I think you'll like this question, and of course, all of us will answer this.
Okay.
So the question is, what is your favorite, or what is a favorite, or go-to praise and worship song?
Oh, I love this. Very good. Oh, I was nervous. Can I pick two?
Sure.
Can I pick two? Is that allowed? Only because Lent is coming. So I have like one for Lent. Okay. Oh, this is hard. Favorite, go-to, so it's called Where the Lord Dwells, I think is what it's called. It's from One Hope Project. Do you know them? Did I say that right? Is it One Hope Project? I think that's what they're called. Look, if they have the comments. So if we're wrong, you put in the comments. But Where the Lord Dwells. Do you say why or just say the song? Oh, why? Well, because it's coming out of Jesus and the encounter with the woman from Samaria, and they're at the well, and it just, only Christ can satisfy. Like, Jesus is living water, and it's just, if you're into Jesus music, like, this is it. It's beautiful and just really grounded in that particular story. And I think that I listen to it and it's not like loud and chirpy, but it just, the lyrics are very beautiful, and then it makes you like pick up your Bible and read it. So I like that one. I said one more, right? I'm allowed one more. Lent is coming up, and so it's, you don't have like jamming, but there's a song, Your Love Remains. And I think it's the Brilliance. I could be wrong about that. But it's just really beautiful around just, thinking about and walking with Jesus during this time, and knowing that love remains, and that it's love that will get us through pain and suffering. And so it's nice. I like this question. I like it. Thank you. Okay, you go.
Okay. Gosh, I should have thought more about this, given that I came up with the question. No, the one that I've been going to recently, we've been doing a lot at the prison with the guys there. It's called Let the River Flow. Very upbeat, and I think I like it just because I like hearing them sing it. It's about the poor man being rich in God, the blind person being able to see, these great reversals. And it just, there's something about hearing it from guys who have often, I think, had a lot to struggle through, who have inflicted struggles on others, to put it lightly, perhaps. But to hear them sing it, I don't know, it feeds me in a way that very few other songs do.
Yeah.
At least praise and worship songs. So that'll be.
You should have a whole episode on praise and worship. I mean, that's
a great idea, actually.
It doesn't get a
that.
good, but the music is beautiful.
That's a great idea. Yeah. The only problem is I'm not a musician, and so like my knowledge of this is so limited, and music is like I'm the type of guy that will listen to songs that I really like and I don't even know the name of them, and it doesn't concern me that I don't know the name of it. I just like it, and so
you might just. So have
you
to
should
sing
just.
it
I was gonna say sing.
No, I know the name of the one I want to choose because it's the only one that I remember the name of. I think it's Be Not Afraid, and I do have a reason for that. I think one in 2013. My grandpa died, and it was played at his funeral, so I kind of have that memory attached. And two, it was also on my first night of the long retreat during the novitiate. So the first day of this 30-day period of silence that we undergo, I was sitting there one night, the first night, just kind of praying, and then these words pop up just in my head, "Be not afraid." And then I am drawn to Psalm 139, I think, and whatever psalm it was, I need to remember this, but it was. The Be Not Afraid is written basically based off of this psalm that I opened it up to. So it was like this moment of just God standing right next to me and being like, I'm right there with you. Yeah. So that's the song that it just fills me with trust, and especially being here in Belize, working out at the prison, which I've never done before, is just there's been a lot of moments of discomfort entering spaces where I'm really uncomfortable, and I don't know what to do and what to say and all these things. And so it's a song that reminds me of, we don't have to be afraid. With God, we never have to be afraid. We never have to let fear control us, even if we feel it.
Even if you feel it, right.
And a song written by a Jesuit.
There it is.
There
I
you
didn't
go.
know that.
See?
I didn't know that. Yeah.
I see a whole episode, not me, but I will watch it, of,
We'll call you. We'll have a guest call.
I guess, phone a friend.
Phone a friend.
Phone a friend, and I'll have my song playing in the background. It'd be perfect.
Well, Luwani, I think we're approaching an hour here, so we want to thank you for being with us on the show.
Thanks for having me.
It was wonderful to have you, and thank you all for joining us. If you have any questions or comments, show suggestions that like Luwani just gave us about praise and worship, which is great. We always are open to suggestions. We have a limited number of episodes left, y'all, so let us know if there are episodes that you want us to have. I mean, we'll finish up at the end of May. Just so you know, so if you want a topic that you want us to cover, you got to let us know soon, because our time is coming to a close soon. Yeah. But thank you for joining us, and again, thank you, Lou, and we'll see y'all next week.